What's up, guys? So I don't know if you guys know this. I have been in school. I'm at the first level, the local community college in my community in Los Angeles, California, in the United States of America. And there's some classes that I have to take in order to graduate. They're called prerequisites to go from the community college to the university level. And obviously the University of California colleges and the California state colleges have different requirements. I'm not really sure what approach I'm going to take if I want to go. My grades are very good and I can go to a better university like a UC compared to a Cal State. I'm just not sure based off the money, just based off of things that happened before I came back to school, talking about my limitations as far as like where I fit in a company, and I think I'm better. Like I move differently, man. I don't know. Maybe I have to start my own business, but there's 2 classes I'm taking this semester just so I could graduate. And one is called Chicano Studies. I don't know if they teach it nationwide. It might be called something else, Latin Studies, or who knows. In Florida, where there's a big Latin community, like Cubans, Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans, and New York. There's Mexicans in New York too, but there's a lot of Mexicans in Southern California, probably California in general. So I gotta take Chicano Studies, but I thought Chicano was I thought a Chicano was of Mexican descent, someone who is brown but only knows America, right? Has assimilated to this culture. I'm not saying they don't listen to music in Spanish, or their parents might have been first generation, but they're mostly of American assimilation, right? Like Americans, the working man, he likes American sports. In Los Angeles, to be the Dodgers, it could be the Rams, or a football team, or you like the Lakers, or you assimilate to this American culture. Or you might like science, or working on cars, or you have hobbies, or you like work with your hands. You might have a business. But no, I guess even now it's sort of vague for me what a Chicano is. I guess Chicano was even before the state of Mexico was even established. Suppose Chicano began when the Spanish were interbreeding with the indigenous people, and they made the mestizo. So then it's like, okay, so I'm not really Chicano, you would say. I consider myself something new that nobody really likes to talk about. I'm a brown American. Again, blacks and whites go by a color wheel. I don't understand how come I'm not being called a brown American. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but that's just the way my brain thinks, maybe. But it's sort of frustrating because of course I know Mexican food. A black or white Chinese person can know Mexican food. I've had friends, most of my friends were of Mexican descent. I consider them Mexican American, and their parents, some of my friends' parents. I had a friend that was Guatemalan. I think his father was Guatemalan, his mom was Mexican. I had multiple friends. My friend's mother passed away, rest in peace. They were just Spanish speaking, but their boys are American, right? And so, but in my household, it wasn't like that. There was Spanish spoken. My grandparents, they were paisano, man. My grandfather was light skinned, but he came over here. He lived in the city of Almani in a trailer park off of an infamous street, or a well-known street called Garvey. And he was a light-skinned Mexican man. But I don't know if he had papers or not, but if he did, he would be considered American, right? but he spoke mostly Spanish, and he was from Chihuahua, Juarez, off the border in Texas. My grandma was from Texas, but they met out here in California. And my other grandma, she was very, very white, and she only knew Spanish. That's my father's mom. My grandfather, I never met him. I think he might have passed when I was really young, or before I was born. He was dark-skinned. He's from Guanajuato, Mexico. My light-skinned grandma was from Jalisco, Guadalajara, Mexico. But again, I didn't. These weren't like, they weren't taking care of me while my mother was at work, so I didn't know Spanish, right? And so I just know America. I like to tell people I was raised off of black music and McDonald's. And I guess if you want to add like a little color, like brown to it, George Lopez comedy was funny. And so I'm a little conflicted. I'm a little torn what goes on. On one instance, I only know America, and I don't know that other experience. And so I just know my children are going to be, even my children and her children and their children are going to be more far removed from another country's culture in another country, which is kind of odd when you say it out loud. Is like, I gotta find it important to uphold another country's culture in another country. It kind of seems asymmetrical, like it just goes one way. Like, what about that other country? Do they give a fuck about my culture? I think they do. I think people would get influenced by America. Obviously, our businesses are out there, corporations mostly. I wouldn't say small businesses, but corporations. But anyway, so in the Chicano studies class, you know, throughout this whole, especially with social media, politics is more in your face now with social media. It's a lot easier. Someone could be at home. They don't actually have to go to the grassroots thing or pass out pamphlets. And what that stood out more, right? Because that's how you got the information. The newspapers, probably on basic cable, local channels. But now it's just in your pocket. It's in your face. So with that, you just are more involved, I would say, even if you don't want to be. And so you heard a lot about this shit, like the colleges are one-sided. The colleges have chosen a side, and they're about, they're not trying to like uphold capitalism, or they're not trying to like encourage. They don't even want to encourage young people. They don't even want to tell them, hey, there's a thing out here. There's a business. Like, you can have a chance. If you guys could just start your own business and believe in yourself, and maybe save up some money or borrow some money and invest it, pay that money back, but then start stacking to get more and reinvest and maybe start another business. Blah. Like, at least try to encourage them to do that. No. Like, there was an idea that they don't even care about that. It's all about shit's unfair. It's a class system. Everything should be equal. Humans, they don't want to do better than the next human next to them. They're comfortable just doing the same thing. That's that idea, right, of communism or socialism. Everything's equal. And so I wasn't sure. And even as I've been coming back to school, you know, you'll hear some shit. You hear some teachers, they have their points of views or whatever the case might have you. And then I took a Chicano studies class. And the whole point of the class, it's sort of a history. It's a history lesson. But it's also political. It should be under political science, actually. And maybe political opinion. But the whole class pertains to the history between the people of the Southwest were like the Aztecs. And then when Spain came over, and then Spain took over, and then America comes and takes over Spain. But there's like a little blend there. It's like, well, wait a minute. So now because, you know, the argument was like, our people always get fucked over. This is from my professor's mouth. Our people always get fucked over. I'm like, first you look a little light-skinned. Like, you know, you look like you're mixed. But then, like, okay, are you talking about the Aztecs who got fucked over by the Spanish? Or are you talking about the Chicano mestizo that got fucked over, you know, because Mexico was established by the Spanish. So now they're a country, but then America comes. So it's like, okay, but now so I feel like it's gotten blended into just white people. It just became white people. So I want to tell you guys, it's true that there is like they chose a side. It's anti-capitalism. Nothing's fair. People are greedy. No one should strive for anything. And like the whole Chicano studies class is just how fucked up America is. And it's just so hard as an American, like by myself, to really like accept it. I find it kind of idiotic that I started, why do we even allow this class to even exist at the university? Like, why? And I know why now. I know why, because it works. You gotta allow the plebes, the common man, the working class, the lower classes, you gotta allow them to have representation, of voice. You have to. You can't suppress it. You can't. You have to allow them. And I'm reading Machiavelli's, what is it called? Machiavelli's, it's in my backpack. I gotta get it right. I want to read something from you guys. So you got to allow this in a society that you don't want to be overthrown. You don't want the principality to become tyranny. You don't want democracy to become anarchy. You don't want aristocracy to become an oligarchy. You got to allow some tributaries, some people to be able to stand up and represent those people, right? And Machiavelli talks about Sparta and some other nations that allowed tributaries to allow some representation. I'm reading a book called Stalin by this author. It's called Stalin. And the Tsars fucked up because they never allowed the people any representation, and not until the very end, until the revolution was already like 70-30, and the Tsars were already on retreat, that they were finally trying to establish some sort of people's council. It was too late by then. I don't even need to get the book. Machiavelli talks about allowing a tribune, a tributary is, like I said, a person who represents the people of the lower classes. So I think that's why these classes like Chicano studies that just wants to remind how fucked up white people are. And it just, as someone who's is trying to find some sense of national pride, because I'm gonna have a child and she's not gonna know Mexico, she's not gonna know some other country. And there's no place for me, someone like me, to be heard. And that's which brings me frustration, is like, well, what about me? You know, we're forgotten. Like, my people are forgotten. The brown American in this country is forgotten. And that's where the contempt for those who wear another country's like colors on their helmet or on their hat, or flossing another country's pride in my country. And that's what kind of brings frustration. And a kind of contempt for a person who in two or three, 4 generations, their children are going to be just like me. And then I have like a distrust towards people in power. But it's not all white people, and then there's kind of a stupid thing, because, okay, let me go to this too, and now another class that I have to take in order to graduate, is an art class. You have to take some sort of art where it's pottery, or you actually do some sort of art drawing, whatever, painting, or you take an art history class. So I'm doing art history, like the Renaissance up until, like, I don't know, 1800s. I don't know how far we're gonna come up, but it begins in the Renaissance. And you have the classical period, the Middle Ages, the Gothic period, the medieval times, and then you have the Renaissance. And then we're up on the Renaissance. She kind of broke down the history, how we get to the Renaissance and where the influence comes from. And then but I'm doing like art. So we're breaking down artists of a certain period, what kind of technique they use, what part of the world they came from, what's the context, what's the medium. And then as we're looking at these paintings, there's something called methodology. I don't know if it's methodology of subjectivity or how I look at a picture and how I like to like talk about it. And supposedly there's 3 methodologies. She tells the first one, so I'm thinking, okay, that sounds logical. And the first one's called iconography, like the symbols within a painting. Iconography, iconography. And in this case, it was like religious based. So it was like the iconography, religious iconography. It was like Christian and Catholic. And we're in Flemish, which is, we're in Flanders, which is Flemish, which is modern day Belgium. You know, like Amsterdam and shit. Ghent, some other country. Borges or Orges, I can't remember. I forgot. And then all of a sudden she gives us 2 other methodologies, and one's called Marxists and one called feminism methodologies. I'm like, what? I was like, how the fuck did Marxists get into some art history class? And the painting we're looking at, she's like, well, look at the drapery, it's for rich people. Look at the dog, it shows like, oh, only they could afford. Look at the fruit, fruit was expensive back then. Oh, look at the house they're living in. And I'm like, how do politics get into fucking art, dude? How do people eat, dude? That should tell you right there, how do people eat when rich people want to spend money? Most of these people who it's called, I forgot what it's called when somebody wants to like pay you to make a drawing for them. I forgot what it's called, but yeah, that's how they make their money, dude. Somebody has a lot of money, they want to open a church, so they tell you to paint on their walls. They tell you to paint on their walls, man. Yeah, that's what they do. Who gives us jobs? The people who are business people want to open businesses. They're the ones who create jobs. And I just fucking, shit blew my mind today. And it's like, okay, so you are upset that you want open borders. Like, just call it left, call it whatever you want. You want open borders. Well, your communism that you want, there is no borders. There's not gonna be no open. There's not gonna be no. There's nothing. You're gonna have. You're gonna have no borders, dude. And that means you're not gonna have immigration, because the most industrious people, the most capitalist people here are the rich people who are hiring the immigrants to do the work. And those immigrants work until they can start their own business, and then they capitalize. So I just think there's a lot of confusion. So you want communism, so that means you're not really for the immigration you think you're fighting for. I think there's just a lot of people who are mad at their parents. A lot of people are mad. Just angry people, man. They don't exercise. They're just a lot of anger, and they're weak people too. They're like weak. But weak people can be dangerous and crazy. But yeah, those are just this is what they do teach in university, and it's true that they show what they're for. That is very political in university. But I gotta go.